Hey everyone, it's Fox from Model Making Guru here, and welcome to part 3 of our build of the 1/60th scale Strike Gundam No Grade. Right, a bit more of a practical episode today. The build's got to the point where we're having to start planning how we're going to be assembling and painting things. Now I have to apologise, these are black and it's really hard to get them to stand out on screen without my hands glowing like I'm possessed by some kind of spirit. So you have to bear with me. So what I'm going to be doing, I have been planning which parts of the model are going to be what colour. And my original plan was to have some of the inner frame parts, like these joints, as a metallic colour, and then this as a grey. However, seam lines, the old dreaded friend. There are seam lines here and down the front of this bit which we'd need to deal with. Now, the metallics I'm going to use, they can be masked off, but it's not exactly an ideal solution. So this is where it's a bit like herding cats. So what I've decided to do is paint all of the leg inner frame the metallic colour, including these parts which stick out from the armour. And then it's just planning how we're going to paint that. So, but this is where you have to think logically. Bearing in mind I want to fill in this seam line down the front here, because these two go together like that. And there's a seam line there down the middle and on the back. And I want this in the middle. This has a little channel built in to cover the seam line, which is kind of cool. So, today what I'm going to do is quickly show you how I'm going to deal with that seam line. And then also, I'm going to show you, if I get time, how I deal with a different seam line on some of the exterior armour. And a different way for dealing with the seam line that doesn't involve hiding it. It actually involves making it more obvious so it doesn't look like a seam line. And you'll understand that when I get to that part. So, first of all, right, so this is the leg part. Now, basically, this goes on here like this, you see. It's quite a tight fit because I put loads of... God, it is a tight fit. Loads of primer on it. Now, the problem here, and I'm not going to put it together fully because it's a pig to get apart. The problem we have here, first of all, is obviously the seam line, which is going to go here, which is going to hide. And here, these bits are exposed. These stick out from the armour. So I need to fill those. However, the other problem I have is when you put this together properly, these parts here actually rub on this part. And I've already done one leg and it was taking the primer off. And I'm like, ugh. Because then no matter how much I paint it, it's just going to strip it off and you'll see bare plastic. So the first thing we're going to have to do is file this down to make this gap wider. It may not fix the problem, but it might do. There's one I've got here that's part way through the sealing process, and you can see here I filed this down to make it a bit wider. And it gives me a bit more leeway. There's probably still going to be some scrapey, but just not as much. So this is where Gunpla building gets kind of logical and thinky. I do wish sometimes there was just a way to make these things without the seam lines. But there you go, I'll make them all hidden. But this is a no grade, so you're going to have some. So, one other thing I need to point out, I'm using a piece of newspaper here on the work desk because we're going to be sanding and filing. Nonsense everywhere. So put a piece of paper down. And bizarrely, in my local paper, I seem to have found a sketch of Ted Hawksworth from Skipper Scale Models fighting Tony Fairclough from Helgen 3.5. I don't quite know who's winning. I assume they're fighting. They're in pugilistic pants and shoes. So Ted and Tony, what was this argument about? I'm not quite sure what you were shouting about, but I don't know. I just looked at this and thought, Ted and Tony. It's just Ted and Tony straight off. Sorry guys, I couldn't resist. Right, so let's crack on. So the first thing we want to do is get this file down. Now I'm actually going to use a metal file for this because of the speed. And it's dead simple. I need to file this bit down just to widen this gap so it's less likely to hit the joint in the middle. Now I hope you can see all this. I say the lighting is such in the white balance that it's just a big black shape. So now I'm going to be quite aggressive. I'm going to take this all the way down as far as I can. So I'm just going to get this done first. I did this with the other leg. Basically I put the other leg together and glued it and then was like, oh, it's scratching. So I had to then really sweatily and panically, that's not a real word, kind of pull it all apart again. Joy. Now I hate filing. Normally I prefer sanding than filing. And this isn't interesting for you to watch, especially when it's not in shot. But yeah, It's a necessary evil, and this is just faster than sanding basically. So we're just going to file this down. We're going to do it on both sides. I'm trying to think of something to talk about while I do this. It's not very exciting. I want to say thank you to those of you who've wished me well over the last few days, since I said in the last video that I was no longer having a job. Thank you very much. As I said in that video, we'll see how this goes. I might be able to make a living doing this. You never know. If I can suddenly get like 1 million more subscribers and get like 600,000 views for every video, yeah, I don't have to work ever again. But if not, hey, we'll see how it goes. So just whittling this away. It seems to be a bit sticky at the top here. Let's get this round this way. Being careful to avoid that peg, which is kind of important. I'm trying to keep it all, you see how I'm going at an angle here, I'm trying to keep it all level so it's not all wonky and at different angles. Where's my floppy brush? It's not often you have to resort to this kind of thing, but hey, what are you going to do? So that needs to be flattened out. You see here I'm getting closer to the edge. It's a little bit bowed, so I just need to kind of flatten it down a bit. That's why I'm using a metal file as well, because it just gives me a flat surface that keeps sliding off. It gives me a flat edge to work on. If I was using a sanding stick or a sanding sponge, it would be bending and flexing, and therefore I wouldn't be guaranteed a straight edge. Okay. What shall I talk about while I'm doing this? Some of you have asked about the big Millennium Falcon. What's happening with that now that we're in the last few issues and all the parts? I should have all the parts now for it over the next few months. Still, the issue is with that I don't have anywhere to work on it. The model itself, when finished, will be about twice the size of my workspace. So yeah, that ain't happening anytime soon. I'm still collecting the issues, I'm still getting the parts. But until I can find somewhere to actually work on it, then that's just not happening. Some of you have asked about the Perfect Grade Zaku. Yes, that's still ongoing. What I'll probably do is split my time between that, the weekends, and other stuff during the week. Again, as I said in the last video, I'm looking to try and make my living selling these things when I finish them, so I need to make sure I devote some time to that. But yep, that's still carrying on. I just haven't had chance over the last few weeks have been really hectic, so I just haven't had chance. And I've got a really runny nose. Oh, excuse me. Just haven't had chance, basically. So that hasn't gone anywhere. While I remember, still got a few weeks to get your entry in for the Win a Gunpla competition, where you can win a bear guy. I've had some really good entries, and so far I think I know which one I favour, but I need to see more. So we've had some really good entries for that. Basically, you're just designing a colour scheme for my bear guy family model, so I can repaint it, and then you will win that painted model. This is really tedious. So yes, go along to the Facebook page, facebook.com/modelmakingguru. The very top of the news feed, or the feed, whatever they call it now, is a sticky post, and all you need to do is download the picture from the sticky post, go into your favourite video editing, your favourite image editing software, and that can be anything from Photoshop to Microsoft Paint. I don't really care what it is. It doesn't have to be a professional piece of artwork. And just recolor it however you want. I've had some fantastic entries. We've had what have we had? We've had a Metal Gear one. We've had I'm trying to think now. We've had a sort of pandery looking one with an eye patch that looks sweet. And kudos to the chap that sent that in, because he's actually just redrawn the whole thing basically, which is kind of impressive. Oops, pink. What else have we had? We've had loads of entries. Now, I'm not accepting submissions submitted anywhere else. So if you send me a private message with the best drawing in the world, I'll simply tell you to post it on the front page. Because it needs to be open and transparent. Everybody needs to see all the entries so it can be fairly judged that I've chosen the one I like and I've not just picked someone on the quiet following conversations nobody else can see. So don't send me a private message, don't put a post on the on the page. Handy tip for you, if you post something up on the page and it goes into the visitors post section, no one ever sees that. So it's almost not worth it. So yeah, go along, the sticky post at the top of the page, submit your drawing, and then you've got till the 1st of November when I will choose the winner. I will build that and paint it. And then you will receive that model absolutely free of charge, no shipping, no handling. The only thing you might have to pay is import taxes if you're outside the UK. I can't help you with those. That's your local customs authority setting those charges. So, right, that's about done. I'll just smooth it off. Give it a quick sandy, just to get rid of any little marks. So this hopefully should be done now. Now I need to go and do the other side, so I'm not going to make you sit and watch that. Trying to think of what else I need to talk about. Oh, Daryl D's EXS Gundam. Holy shit. If you haven't seen it, if you've not been on the Facebook page, go on the Facebook page. He's posting them up on the visitors comments page, but I'm reposting to the front page. He's building the 1/35th scale EXS Gundam. It's a resin kit with full lighting and everything. And holy shit, is that thing big. Jeez Louise. Daryl, I salute you, mate. That is one impressive thing. And as I said to him in a comment the other day, you do realise when you finish this thing, you can never move house because shipping it anywhere will cost you like £5,000 or $1 million or wherever you are. So yeah, check that out. Daryl D's EXS Gundam. Oh, and one other thing as well. I know you're all sending me pictures, and I love it. I love you sending me all pictures of your stuff. You're sending me messages with your pictures on. I am really apologising strongly. I've got a backlog of about 35 messages, and I'm just trying to find the time. So if you've sent me images and I haven't posted them up on the front page, I will get to it. Don't despair. The difficulty is if I've got 30 messages and like 500 pictures, I could post them all up on the front page at the same time. But then I'm just spamming the front page, and on your news feed you'll get 300 posts from me with pictures, and I'll be like, yeah, that's not very polite. So I am going through them and I'm posting them as and when I can, but at the moment I've got a lot of other things demanding my time. So my apologies if you've sent me pictures and I haven't responded yet. I will respond eventually. Right, that's done. Sanded down, perfectly straight, but it'll do. I need to do the other side, so give me 10 minutes, I'll go and do that, and then we'll do a quick test and we'll get the thing glued. So, back in a moment. Right, okay, so everything's been filed down, you can see here. It's looking a bit neater. A bit of sanding as well, because I want to make sure it's smooth. So what we need to do now is get this thing put together properly and get these seams filled. And that couldn't be easier. We're going to use two products. We're going to use Tamiya Extra Thin Cement and Tamiya Cement. This is the thin version, this is the gloopy thick version. Now, some of you have asked whether you need to use these specific cements. You don't. However, Tamiya Extra Thin is one of the thinnest cements out there and it's perfect for this particular job. If you can get this, I really strongly recommend it. The only stipulation is if when you're using glue to seal a seam or hide a seam, you have to use a welding cement, a cement that melts the plastic together and fuses it. Because what we're going to do is we're going to put glue in there, squish it together, the glue will come out with melted plastic, fill the gap, bit of glue on top to hide it, and then we'll sand it back. You have seen me in other videos do this bit that I'm about to do now, and then later on go over with some CA glue, some super glue, some cyanoacrylate glue. The only reason I use the CA glue, some of you have asked if you can use that to fill the gap, and it's like, no, because it's brittle and it will eventually fall out and break. You need to weld the plastic, you need to melt the plastic and then make that bond to get it coming out. But I might use CA glue if I have any little pits or dings left at the end once I've sanded it back. So we need to put some glue in here, and we need to put some glue in here, and we're basically going to try and hide this seam line. So it couldn't be easier, but it could be messier. It couldn't be messier, actually. It's very messy. So what we need to do is... I need to just double check I've done this the right way around, actually. You know when you have that sudden moment of doubt and you think, oh shit. No, it's the right way around, I think. Yes. Because the other leg glued now, so I'd be knackered if it wasn't. Right, so first thing we're going to do, get our extra thin. And we're just going to put a touch of glue in here on these sides. Now they're not going to be in contact. I'm not risking gluing anything together that shouldn't be glued here, so I can just go in with the glue quite handily. And not worry too much. Make sure you get it on both sides. And then as soon as that's in, all we're going to do is squish. Give it a second because it needs to start melting the plastic. And then we're just going to squish. Just before it goes together, I'll put a little bit more in. And the beauty of this glue, and the reason I used extra thin, and if you're making an actual glue model kit, say something like a tank with lots of tiny parts, it's perfectly because you can put the part together and then apply the glue. And it will, capillary action will pull it in where it needs to go. So I'm going to just give that a second. Now, I have to admit, I've never been that good at getting the glue to squish out. What should happen is it should melt the plastic and the glue should come out and bubble out of that gap, bringing some plastic with it. However, it doesn't always happen. I'm squishing. You can see there's a bit of a bead there of glue, which is cool. And that's glue and plastic. That's why you need a welding cement. Any real sort of, anything that's a cement on it. If it comes in a tube, throw it away. You never want to use that stuff anyway. Humbrol's poly cement. I think that's a welding cement. That'd probably work. Revell's contactor. I think that's a welding cement. That'd probably work. Just try different ones. But if you, to me, extra thin is just by far the best, the absolute best modelling cement that there is for standard polystyrene plastic like this. It won't work on ABS. If you've got ABS parts, you have to use specific glues. To me, I do an ABS glue. Or you can use other glues. CA glue, super glue, it's brittle and it breaks if it's shocked, and it does crumble away over time. So I very rarely use CA glue for anything. I say, apart from filling in little dings, which is kind of handy because it does dry rock hard, or for gluing metal to plastic and things like that. That big D'Agostini Falcon, it tells you to use CA glue because the whole kit's made out of ABS. Nah, you don't want to do that. Use ABS glue. CA glue is messy and just a pain in the backside. Right, so that's gone on. What I'll do now is I'll make sure I put the lid on that. Get my gloopy thick cement. And there's millions of different ways of doing this. This is the way I do it. Get a big generous dot and I'm just going to put it on top over that seam line. And this is a bead of glue. The idea is it will make a little bead that will harden. And then when it's all dried and hard, we can sand it back, and if we're lucky, there'll be enough cement in the panel, in the seam line, that will sand it flat and it'll just hit that cement, and then you have a nice seam line less surface. Doesn't always work. Sometimes the cement melts the plastic too much and it just makes a little depression. That's when you might use CA glue or filler, putty. You can use putty as well. But as I've said before, this is all about speed and efficiency. So that's now glued. We've got our bead. So I'm going to put that over there for a moment, just out of the way. I'll try and explain. Have I got a pen? Let me find a pen or a Sharpie. Yeah, what I'm trying to do is, and I've never really done this on camera before, but I'll show you. I'll find a bit of, just do it of this text. So you've got your two pieces of plastic here, and that's your seam line. That's the evil seam line. There. What we try and do is we fill it with the thin glue. That mixes with the plastic and bubbles out like that when you squish it together. So then that makes a little cap over the top. Sometimes it doesn't come out all over the place, so then you put some of that thick glue over the top and that just sits as a bead over the top. And then what you do is, when you sand that back, you sand it back here, and what you should be left with is a flat surface, and this is filled with glue, so you have a perfectly smooth flat surface. Now if you're not painting your model, you may still see a clear bit where the glue is maybe not got any plastic in it, so you might have a clear line. So it's not ideal if you're not painting your model. If it's white parts, it's probably fine. If it's, say, a black piece or a green piece, you might struggle a little bit. But if you're painting your model, this is fine. Get that done, get it sanded, sand it back, prime over it. Nobody will ever know there was a seam line there. So that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to do. And this has just reminded me of the old, many years ago, if you live in the UK, you remember there was I can't remember what the product was called now, it was like an anti-zit stuff you put on your face to get rid of zits. And they used to have a picture of the skin with the zit, and then you put the stuff on and they just wipe that off with an eraser. And then, yeah, I'm regressing to my teenage years now. So that's what we're trying to do. So this is now drying. I'll probably leave both legs, because I did the other leg about an hour ago. I'll leave them both overnight just to fully dry and harden. And then we'll come back and sand this back and see what we've got. You can see there's still a bit of a little ridge where the seam line is, but hopefully when we sand it back it may disappear. If not, I can go in as a last resort with some CA glue, because this thick stuff, it melts the plastic a bit as well, so sometimes it can sort of and you'll get a little pit. Let me get my pen back. Sometimes you get like a little pit like that where it's weakened the plastic, especially if it's thin plastic. So you just go in with some CA glue, put a dot of CA glue on, let that harden, sand it back, and again you've got a flat surface. It's just if I've used this and it's left a little depression, then putting more of that on will just melt the plastic and weaken it further. So at that point I'll just go in with the CA glue as a rock hard, non-aggressive filler. Or you could use putty. I just hate using putty because it's fiddly and I can never get it right. So we'll let that dry for a bit, and we'll come back to that when it's finished its setting, and we'll sand it. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you, which is another way to deal with a seam line. On the leg, on the upper part of the leg, I'll bring the other leg back in. This is the other leg, it's still drying. See there, it's got the glue drying. The armour on the top of the leg goes over like this, and I'm not going to put it on properly. Now the problem is, there's two problems with this. One, because it sits over like, let me just put it on, hang on. It sits over the leg like that. So you can see it goes on this bit. Now there's a few problems with this. One, this bit here rubs on that bit there. So I'm going to need to sand these edges and make them smaller. Two, there is some rubbage around these edges on this joint, because it does move a little bit. So I'm going to have to sand in here just to widen it like we did on this part of the leg. And the other thing is, it's got this big seam line. If I can't get this off now, can I? Hang on. There we go. It's got this big seam line going all the way down the leg. You can see there, right down the middle. Now, I could use the same method we've just used, which is just to glue it. However, it would need to be on the leg. And this will be painted the metallic colours, which I said before. You can mask them off, and I'll show you that we'll do the metallics later, but in the next episode possibly. But you can mask them off, but there's no guarantee it won't damage the paint, because I'm not going to be able to seal over those metallic paints. So I'd rather not do that, because I can't have, because if I put this in situ on the leg, I'd have to then mask off this part and paint this, and then that's just going to get really fiddly. So what I'm going to do instead is show you a way to, instead of hiding a seam line, actually make a seam line into a panel line. And it's dead cool. I've got one here that I did earlier, and you won't be able to see this at all because I'd have to prime it so you can see it. But what we're going to basically do is actually make this. If it's a seam line, people look at it and say, "Oh, it's a seam line." What we're going to do is make it a panel line, so it looks like there's supposed to be a panel there. And what you'll need is a scribing tool. This is my new scribing tool that I just got. Now, ideally, there are some scribing tools that come with a little notch taken out, like a little 90-degree notch in the corner, and they are specifically for going along and the edge and making a panel line. It just takes a little certain amount off the edge. I don't have that. Arse. So I got creative. Now what you would traditionally do is, to make a panel line, you put down some Dymo tape. Remember those little things where you used to have a little handhold thing that you press and then it would imprint letters into that strip of tape like you get on old door signs and stuff. Dymo tape's really hard, so you put it on the edge and then you'd scribe it. We're not going to do that because the Dymo tape refuses to stick to this primer, which is ironic for a primer. So what we're going to do is we're just going to be cool about this. And I'm going to leave my space helmet so I can see what I'm doing. What we're going to do, to take this from a seam line to a panel line, I'm going to basically chamfer this edge by about 45 degrees. So instead of, where's my pen gone? I need my pen. I'm liking this pen thing. Where's my pen gone? So instead of having an edge like that, where that's that edge, what we're going to have is an edge like that. And then the other side, we're not going to do it on there, so that will be like that. So this will be widened, and when you look at it normally, instead of seeing your leg armour here with a seam line down the middle, you're actually going to see your leg armour here with a panel line. It's kind of in my mind it works. So how do we do this? Dead easy. It just requires a steady hand and a bit of patience. All I'm going to do, because I can't use the Dymo tape, and the only way to use this blade is normally to just drag it along to make a panel line. There is a blade on this edge. I'm just quite simply going to take it, get it about 45 degrees and gently shave. Now the advantage is, because I've primed it and it's black, it means that I can see where I've shaved. So if you're going to do this, it might be worth just using a dark colour primer of some sort, just so you can have a reference, because you can see that now I can see how far I've gone. I'm going to go back the other way. And just take your time. You'd have to use a bit of force, it takes quite a few goes. And work a section at a time until you have it as wide as you want it. Now what I'll do is I'll get the other piece just to make sure I get it about the same. You can see on here, on this piece, I've already done it. And I've goofed in a few places. There's a bit here I went a bit wide, it went like that, so it looks a bit weird, but I can live with that. So I need to make sure, I'm looking at the same thing, I need to make sure it's about that wide. So let's just keep going. Oops. And it's not immediately obvious when you do it. And you probably can't see it there, but if we're lucky we'll get like a 45-degree angle. I'll just move on to this bit. And I need to do this so it matches. Hopefully this is all lit enough that you can see it. But having the black and white plastic underneath, just, oh dear, scratch, makes this a lot easier. Oops. It's not easy, and I'm not saying this is a perfect way of doing this. Ideally, if you've got a scribing tool with a selection of blades, there will be a blade that has, like I say, a little sort of quarter of a square notch in the end, and it's specifically for going along a ledge and going and doing this kind of making a channel on an edge. I don't have that, so I'm having to improvise. There's my floppy brush. Give that a little bit of a sand. Smooth it out. So hopefully you can see, and I don't know if you can, but whether it will show on camera, but there is now an ever so slight 45-degree chamfer on that edge. So we'll just do a bit more. And just take your time. You could do this with a modelling knife, with a craft knife, or you could try filing it, but filing it's not going to give you a nice smooth edge, and a craft knife will probably do the job just as good, to be honest. But just double check first. Do a couple of tests on a spare piece. Because all this is basically a blade, it's just a tool that's designed for making panel lines. But a scriber will give you a nice smooth edge, whereas a craft knife might give you a kind of rough edge to it. So I'll just sand that gently. You could even sand an edge on, but again you wouldn't get a crisp edge. And this is by no means a crisp edge, but it's better than I would get if I was filing it or sanding it. So let me get the other piece. Now I'm going to regret doing this because these are really hard to get apart once you've got them together, and it'll be hard to see because it's black and white. But if I put these together, and if I actually put them the right way around, you spoon. Do you know what you end up with? I do a bit of sanding on that, and I'm going to re primer these. Okay, it's not come out as obvious as I'd hoped, so I might need to just widen it a bit more. And I can't really show it in the light because I can't get the light right for you. But what you'll see on the other one, I'll put the other one together and then I'll regret doing that again because I can't get my part. You might see on this one, it's more of a panel line than just a seam line. Now I went a bit wonky there, it's gone out a bit, but I can live with that. I'll put some weathering on it and hide all that nonsense. It's not exactly what I was hoping for. Ideally, I would say I wanted the blade where I can do the little 90-degree notch and make an actual little ledge, but that's not happening. So I can't afford to be buying more stuff right now. So I'm going to keep. You can maybe see it in profile a bit. It might be more obvious once it's primed, but hopefully at the end of it, it's making it more obvious. So instead of having a seam line that's just about visible, and people go, "Oh, you haven't filled that seam line in," I'm saying, oh look, here's a big panel line. It's one way of doing it. So if you're not able in some situations to do the filling, like in this case I'd have to, because I'm painting that metallic, I can't mask it off once that's on there. So then this is just an alternative method. It's not perfect, but it'll do. I can put some chipping around there if I need to, just to make it more obvious it's a seam line and not just something I didn't bother doing. Right, so I'll go and finish that off, and that will. How long has this episode been? I'm not sure. I'll see how long this episode is. We'll either come back and do the sanding on the leg, which will be for me tomorrow, or we will do that in the next episode. So either adios amoebas, or back in a moment. Okay, right, all the glue's had time to set. As you can see, I've painted just a random colour on here, and this will become evident in a second. This is going to be our guide coat. This is going to help us see where we need to keep sanding. Because this is black, I've used a light colour. If this was a white piece, I'd use black paint. Again, just so I can see where any little pits or raised areas remain. Apologies if this goes out of focus. I've got to lock the focus at a particular distance, and I've no idea where that is now. Right, so this is dried. We need to sand this to get rid of all this nonsense. You can see where the glue is there. So dead easy. I'm going to use some ultimate sticks. I'm going to use this rough one. I'm going to use the medium spongy one, and that might be enough because I'm going to be priming over this. So let me get on my space helmet of seeing, and I'll just do you a quick demo, and it couldn't be easier. Just going to take this bit here, and we want to basically sand away this bead of glue to leave it flat. So very gently, I'm going to use the rough side first, not too heavily, not going to be too harsh, keeping it flat to the surface. I don't want to make a curve where there isn't one. And I'm going to vary the angle of attack a few times just to even out the marks I'm making. So I'm just being a bit gentle. So you can see here we've got some paint left there, and then the nice straight line here. This tells me that this is raised over that because this paint isn't being sanded off, so I need to sand this side more until that paint disappears, and that's what the guide coat's for. You know it's all flat and sanded when all the guide coat is gone. So I'll just carry on. Now you may end up, and you probably will end up, with some softening of edges. It's invariably going to happen. There's not a lot you can do about that. Just try and maintain the shape as much as you can. Okay, keep going. Still got some guide coat there, you can see. You can do, if you want, go in with the metal file just to make light work of it. Again, this is just because everything will stay flat with the metal file, so I'm just going to very gently, because I don't want to make massive scratches and gouges, if I can avoid it. this is all on camera. So what I'm doing is basically taking that raised edge down to the level of that side where the paint is. And when it's all the same level, that paint should magically disappear, hopefully. Let's go back to this one. Can be very quick, or it can take a while sometimes. It depends on your seal, how much needs to be done. Looking a lot flatter now. Now you can still see a little shiny line in there from the glue, maybe, but that's fine because that's just the glue being shiny. As long as it's all flat, that's all that matters. Okay, so let's go in with a slightly smoother side. Now again, I'm priming this, so it's not the end of the world if it's a little bit rough. If this was bare plastic and we weren't painting it, this would be a living nightmare. Going with the medium squishy sponge. I hope this is all in focus for you. Right, clean that off. And you can see there now, you might not be able to see in this light, it's not ideal, but that seam line is now pretty much gone. There's a little bit there I can see, so I might need to go in with a little bit of CA glue just to fill that little nodule, that little notch, or it may actually be hidden with the primer. So that's all we're doing, is just sanding that back. Now if this was bare plastic, I would go in with fine refining grits to get this back to a plasticky shine, but we're priming over it, so all I'm really concerned with is getting rid of any massive scratches and gouges, because when we paint this a metallic colour, that's obviously going to stand out like a sore thumb. So as long as it's flat, that's all that matters. Cool, so I'll go and do this bit and the front bit and get the other leg, and we'll get them primed, and then it'll be on to the next, excuse me, I burped then, the next step, which will be getting these painted. So we're going to leave that for the next episode. So let me go and get all those done. I'll come back and show you quickly what they look like, and then we should call it done for this episode. So back in a moment. I don't know why I'm wiggling my finger. Next bit. And we're back. Okay, all the sanding's been done, it's been reprimed, and look, bom 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 bom, no seam line, la 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 la. Yes, kick ass. So all done, all present and correct. There are still a couple of little dinks in there, just little nicks and marks, and there's a few bits where I slipped with the scribing tool and it's made little scratches, but I'm actually going to leave those because I'm going to make them into little bits of damage. Like there's a little bit of a ding you can see maybe there on the end. Where was the other one? There was another one somewhere. I can't remember. I don't know where it is. Don't know why I went Scottish then. My father will be spinning in his grave. But there's a few anyway. You can see them when you get close up. But I'll leave those because this is going to be a metallic colour. So it'll just look little dings and nicks in the metal. So that's kind of cool. Also, so I can show you now, that panel line idea. Let me just focus a little bit on that so you can see it properly. That's the effect we're after. It now looks like a panel line rather than just a seam. It's not 100% perfect. It's a little shonky in places, but it's going to do. Because that'll get filled, it's going to be painted white, it's going to get filled with a pin wash. So that's a quick and easy way, it's a bit wide there you see, yeah. Ah well, it's a quick and easy way to make a seam line look like something else. If I really put my mind to it, I could put some other panel lines on here, but I'm not going to, because I need to practice with the scribing tool first. I've not really done panel lining before, so I need to get some practice in with that, so I'm not going to risk it for a biscuit this time. I'll try on a spare piece and get used to it. But yeah, I could put some more in there. Apparently this bit is supposed to be, this little sticky out flange is supposed to be a grey colour, so I'm going to have fun painting that. That's going to be masking territory, I think. Or brush painting, I'm not quite sure. I've got to look into whether I can paint on top of lacquers, because the metallic paint is a lacquer, and I'm going to leave it for days. This is why I'm doing this bit now, because I need to leave it for days to make sure it's fully cured. So I've got to look into what you can paint on top of lacquers. I can't clear coat it once it's done. Not on this, I mean on these parts. So I don't even know I'm mentioning that. Yeah, I can't clear coat the metallics once they're done, because the only thing I've got at the minute is Pledge multi-surface wax, and that will just make it look like ass. I have just ordered 2 bottles of Pledge Floor Finish ×2 the Shine something or other. Apparently it's the new multi-surface wax, but it's only available in America, but it's more akin to the original Clear and Future. So I've got a couple of those on orders, and apparently they're really, really good. Apparently the one thing you can spray on metallics that won't dull the gloss is the Gauzy stuff from, I can't remember if it's Vallejo or AK Interactive. Apparently it's quite good on metallics. However, it also tends to flake and peel after a long time, so not going to bother with that. So these are going to be unprotected, so I'm going to have to be careful when I'm doing the weathering. I may have to do all the weathering and streaking and stuff on the armour before I attach it. So, but yes, that's all done. So I'm really chuffed with that. That's come out quite nicely. Unfortunately, I've now got to go and shit kittens while I try and get these 2 apart again, because I don't want to scrape all the primer off again and then have to reprime it. For those of you who are wondering, by the way, to prise these things apart, what have I been using? Not my blade. I've been using this, which is, if you saw, I don't know if you saw a while ago, I got on the Facebook page, I showed a picture of a set of clay sculpting tools that I got from Pound Shop for £1. And there's loads of these different shapes and sizes, and this is perfect as a spudger, just to get in the little crack and spudge it apart. So this is my official spudger now, for spudging, so I can spudge pieces apart. Because it's not sharp like a knife, so it's not going to scrape and scratch the plastic. So there you go. Go to your local dollar store, pound store, whatever you call it in your part of the world. See if you can pick up a set of clay sculpting tools. I've got loads of them. I use this one as a stirrer. It's great. It's sweet, isn't it? And I can use that to scoop powders. I've got loads of those. There's a big pack of them. Anyway, that's going to do it for this time. When we come back, we will, I'm not sure if we'll do them, we might do the metallics with the Mr. Colour Metals. I want to get them done so I've got a chance to dry while I'm doing everything else. So we'll maybe crack on with the metallics, or if not, we'll start on painting the armour parts. So it just remains for me to say, as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're learning stuff. Your views are much appreciated. Do pop along to the Facebook page, facebook.com/modelmakingGuru, and say hello. Don't forget the competition. Go and submit your image for the competition. You've got till the 1st of November when I draw the winner, and they win a completely painted bear guy family. That's the bear guy and the petit bear guy, or puchi bear guy, as the Japanese call it. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for the next one. I should be able to hopefully get videos more frequently now. I'm not actually working, so there's an upside for you guys anyway. And take care of yourselves, and until next time, adios amoebas.